So it's a continuation from the discussion in the last class. What I told you already is the energy band diagram. How do we draw when you bring together metal, oxide and semiconductor region, and we have taken the case of the work function same for metal and semiconductor, and also what will happen if they are different. And then at the end of the last class we began our discussion on how this energy band diagram is going to be modified when you apply an external voltage. So in order to see that effect, the application of external voltage, what we did was we took the case of phi m equal to phi s, and then we applied a positive voltage on the gate with respect to bulk. Okay, as I have shown here, you can see this VGB is positive on the gate. So my gate is here, so this is my gate and this is my bulk. Okay, so when you apply a positive voltage on the gate with respect to bulk, the electric field is always from positive to negative charges. Okay, so the gate is going to become positive charged. Okay, the gate is going to become positive charged like this, and the electric field or electric flux lines begin from the positive charge and they will terminate in the negative charge. So initially when you apply the positive voltage, let us consider the case where the voltage is not very large. Okay, so initially the effect of this electric field is to push away all the holes in the bulk material. Okay, so the bulk means the semiconductor region. It has lot of holes because we are assuming this to be p type. So that means majority carriers around 10 raised to 16 per centimeter cube holes are there. Okay, so these are the holes. So the moment you apply positive voltage on the gate, these holes will experience a push, right? Because the like charges repel each other. So these holes will be which was there from one end of the semiconductor region to the other end of the semiconductor region, they will be pushed away, and that movement of holes away from the interface region, okay, will create effective negative charge region due to the ions, because p-type semiconductor is actually made of we have already doped it with p-type impurity, which is like boron, for example. So the boron atoms have acquired an electrons. Each boron atom have acquired electron into its to form the completeness in the covalent bond from the nearby silicon bonds. Okay, so because of that holes were created, but now the holes were pushed away, and therefore the negative charge will be exposed. So we get a depletion region just at the interface. Okay, and the positive charge which originates the flux lines, electric flux lines, they will finally terminate on those negative charge. In other words, there will be voltage dropped across the insulator region or the oxide region. So this is the oxide here. Okay, the middle region is the oxide region. So there will be an electric field, and there will be a voltage drop across the oxide region, and the remaining voltage drop will be in the depletion region. Why? Because some of the flux lines will not be terminated at the interface. They will penetrate into the semiconductor region where there are negative charge on which these flux lines will be going into. Okay, some will be terminated at the edge, but some will go deep in where you have negative charge. So till there, so there will be an equal amount of positive charge on the gate and correspondingly negative charge. So we are applying a voltage which is small enough not to create any n channel, which I discussed. There are three modes of operation. One is the accumulation mode, where you apply, for example, negative voltage or something like that, so that the lots of holes will be there, they will be accumulated near the interface. Second is depletion mode, that is what we are looking at, where we push away these holes from underneath the oxide layer, and create a depletion region there. And third mode is where you apply large positive voltage, where not only holes are pushed away, electrons are attracted underneath the oxide layer. Okay, so these are the three modes. So depending upon the voltage that we apply, we will operate the MOS capacitor in one of the three modes. Okay, what are the modes? Accumulation mode. In this particular case, if you apply a negative voltage, we accumulate holes in the interface region in the semiconductor. Secondly, if you apply a small positive voltage, we will push away all the holes and create a depletion region. And the third mode is where we apply a strong positive voltage, which will not only push away the electrons or holes, we will attract the electrons underneath the oxide layer. So we are now considering small positive voltage that is being applied across gate and bulk. Okay, so this is the picture or the schematics for depletion mode operation. Now we have also started calculating the electric field by applying Gauss law. So everybody, you said that you are familiar with the Gauss law. So Gauss law says that if you take a surface integral, closed surface integral, which sometimes put two integrals in order to show that. So closed surface integral of closed surface integral of d dot ds. So this is basically the Gauss law. So if you do this, you take any surface, closed surface, and then you take the flux density and integrate over the entire surface. That will give you the amount of charge which is, or the amount of charge which is going to be enclosed by that surface. So that's what basically the statement of Gauss law in integral form. Okay, we only require the integral form here. So if I apply that, D means it is epsilon E. Okay, and epsilon is different at different region. For example, oxide has epsilon. I am writing it as epsilon ox. So if you are considering a surface which is like on the left side, we are focusing on the green cuboid. Okay, so this I have denoted here as a green cuboid. These dotted lines, I am only showing a 2D picture, but actually it is a 3D picture with 6 faces. You have to imagine that. It is difficult to draw here. But if you consider, all the 6 faces of this cuboid with the green cuboid, then only one surface is going to have flux lines, passing through it, because all other surface, for example, the upper surface, there is not going to be an electric field. Lower surface also there is not going to be any electric field. Similarly, front and back also will not have any electric field, and back also will not have any electric field. So or right side also will not have any electric field, because we are taking the surface in such a way that these 5 faces are like outside or in a region where there is no electric field. So only one of the surface has electric field, and that electric field is going to be a constant to some good approximation. Okay, so we are taking that approximation and neglecting all the fringing field which is on the edges, which is also actually there. But any capacitor, if the plates are very close by, like the thickness of the oxide, if it is so small, then you can think about the in between region have a perpendicular electric field. And if it is perpendicular, it is easy to take the dot product E dot ds, because ds is a normal vector perpendicular to the surface of the cuboid pointing outward toward the cuboid. So ds is actually in the minus x direction for this left surface. So if you take a dot product of that unit vector with the electric field which is going to the right side, you will get minus sign here. Okay, and since it is going to be a constant, you can take out the electric field value from the integral, and then you have double integral ds, which is going to be the area of that face. Okay, so that is basically A. We are taking A as the area. So this A is basically area of the left surface, which is same as the area on the right surface. Okay, so epsilon ox E ox is the constant electric field inside the oxide region multiplied by A, okay, with a negative sign because they are anti-parallel. Okay, so that is basically the charge enclosed in the green volume, okay, so or green cuboid. So you can calculate the amount of negative. It's a negative charge. You can see that all these acceptor ions are going to be negative charged. Each ion will contribute one charge if it is a boron atom, okay, and therefore if there are in 1 centimeter cube, actually there are Na. Na is the concentration of the acceptor ions. So Na multiplied by Q will give you the charge per unit centimeter cube, okay, or unit volume, and that if you multiply with the entire volume of this space charge region, the depletion region, which is basically A, which is the cross section area multiplied by the depth of the depletion region, XD. I have shown here the XD here, okay, so this is XD, and you can see here Tox, okay, Tox is basically the width of the oxide region, XD is basically the width of the depletion region. So A, the perpendicular area multiplied by the depth of depletion region, will give you the volume in which the acceptor ions are sitting, and the concentration multiplied by charge will give you the charge density. So charge density multiplied by volume will give you the total enclosed charge. So from this you can get the electric field as shown here. It comes as Q Na XD. The negative signs cancel on both sides. The area also cancel on both sides. So the electric field Eox, that means electric field in the oxide region is equal to Q Na XD divided by epsilon ox. Okay. Now once you find the electric field in a region, okay, then that electric field is going to be in this Eox is going to be constant in the entire oxide region, because the electric field or the flux lines are not going to be terminated in between, okay, they are all going to be terminated after this interface, because that is where the negative charge is going to be. So it originates from the positive charge and terminates in the negative charge, and in the oxide region we assume that there are no charges, okay. Even in practice that is not completely true. There could be some trapped charges inside the oxide region, but we are neglecting it for our easiness of derivation. Otherwise we need to take into account of that also. So therefore this electric field should be constant, because there is no charge inside the oxide region, and therefore we can find, when you want to find out the electric field, we know the formula for finding electric field is a line integral from point 1 to 2 E dot dx. Basically what is voltage? By definition it is like V12 means it's basically the voltage at point 2 minus point 1, okay. So the voltage between point 1 and 2 is basically the amount of work that you need to do in order to move a unit positive charge from one point to another. And if there is electric field is E, so that is like force on a unit charge, and when you take dot product with dx, basically you are finding out the amount of work done, and you integrate from point 1 to point 2, so that will give you the voltage at point 2 with respect to point 1, okay. V12 means voltage at point 2 with respect to point 1. So that if you find out, you will get it as a negative value, okay. So that is where we have I think stopped in the last class. We have done this integral minus qa xd. So it's just dx means if E is constant, in this case E is constant, all this q, na, xd, epsilon ox, all of them are constant. So integral of dx is going to be x. So you put 0.122, that is limit, and so how do we take the origin? So for this integration, what we do is, like, we are starting from point 1 and we are proceeding to the right side. So the origin is like we are taking the origin right now at this point, okay. So for finding the voltage between 1 and 2, we are taking this point 1 as the origin initially, okay. So that integral, you will get x, And since we know that the x is basically linearly varying, and therefore if you want at any point what is going to be the voltage, you put instead of point 2 you put point x. So that will give you the voltage at any point from 1 onwards. So if you take 1 as the origin, so from point 1 the voltage is going to reduce gradually, right? So because it is a negative quantity and it is proportional to x, its magnitude is proportional to x, and it is going to decrease because of the minus sign here. Okay, but if you want to if you are only interested in finding out the voltage at point 2, then you just put point 2 as the other edge of the oxide region, so where x is equal to T ox. Okay, so if you put that, you will get basically what is going to be the voltage drop across the oxide region, and that is Q Na xd T ox by epsilon ox. Now if I define epsilon ox by T ox, this is like a famous formula for finding the capacitance of a parallel plate capacitor, which is basically epsilon A by D. Everybody knows that. So here only difference is that A is not there. So if you take the capacitance and divide it by area, you get basically capacitance per unit area. So this is basically capacitance per unit area, because we are dividing it by area, and this is for the oxide region, so you can call it as oxide capacitance per unit area. Okay, so if I define like that, then I can substitute oxide C ox instead of epsilon ox by T ox. So in the denominator there will be C ox, and Q Na xd, so that is going to be what? That is going to be basically this Qd is basically charge, the concentration of concentrate or amount of charge per unit area. So amount of charge per unit area. Okay, so if you take a unit area of cross section, how much is the amount of charge that is there in the depletion region? Okay, so that is basically QD. Okay, this much we have already seen. Okay, now if I draw these pictures, electric field and voltage, if I draw, so you can see that the electric field is constant, it is E ox inside the oxide region. So we have only found out this part, where inside oxide we got it this value. Okay, so E ox is equal to Q Na xd by epsilon ox. Whatever is that, it is a constant because it doesn't vary with x. Okay, and then if you find out the potential, then you will see that in the gate the potential that we have applied is VGB. Okay, so at this point in the metal we have a voltage which is applied with respect to bulk, that is VGB. That's a battery voltage. But then from point 1 to point 2, which is basically the oxide region, the potential is going to be linearly decreasing. Okay, so if I write the expression for this, on one side we have VGB, and then I have this quantity, that is Q Na then xd into x. Okay, so x by epsilon ox. So if I substitute point 1 as 0 and point 2 as x, so that means at any point x in between, from 1 to x, if we are doing the integration, then we will get something like this. Okay, so this is like an equation of a straight line. So as you increase x, you can see that this is a constant, this is something like the slope, okay, which is negative slope, and therefore the voltage is going to decrease from VGB. Okay, so from point 1 to point 2, the amount of decrease that voltage drop across the oxide layer is basically when x become T ox. Okay, so that is basically this. Okay, and this has negative charge. Why? Because it is decreasing with respect to x. Okay, we start from VGB and then we decrease with respect to X, and when we reach TOX, that is at 0.2, then the voltage is basically decreased by a quantity which is called psi-ox. Okay, that was there in our energy band diagram. If you go back to the energy band diagram, I said that there will be two drops. One is basically this drop which is in the depletion region, the other is this drop. Okay, so there are two drops here. The drop which is inside the oxide region, that is called psi-ox. So psi-ox plus so this is Q psi-ox, because it is energy we are taking from potential, we have to multiply with Q. So the voltage is actually dropping toward right side, but when you multiply with Q is actually negative charge of electron, so it will be shown in the energy band diagram as increasing with respect to X. Okay, so from X equal to 0 to X is equal to TOX, there is a linear change of energy, okay, increasing of energy, which corresponds to the decreasing of potential. Okay, so that is what is shown. So this difference in energy is what we have found out. Okay, so we have got so the electric field and voltage drop in the oxide region. Now we need to find out what are these values, how do they vary in the depletion region, that is inside the semiconductor near to the interface. There is going to be some electric field, and so we need to find out that. For that, again we are going to apply the Gauss law, same procedure, but now we consider the Gaussian surface differently. Okay, so the new so this is like the new Gaussian surface. So this is Gaussian surface 2. Okay, so earlier we took another one which was this, so that was Gaussian surface 1. Gaussian surface 1. Okay, so for this new red cuboid, again it is a cuboid, but one edge is actually passing between the interface and the edge of the depletion region. Okay, so it is passing through the left side is passing through the so that we can find out what is going to be the electric field inside the depletion region. So we take the left side of the Gaussian surface passing through the depletion region, and all other surfaces are like before, they are going to be outside where there are no electric field. So only electric field is between in this and we can calculate easily what is going to be the charge enclosed in this cuboid. It is going to be from the left surface to the XD position. We need to integrate whatever is the amount of charge, and that will be the enclosed charge, and that will decide what is going to be the electric field on that surface. Okay, so before we do that, what we do is basically there is another important thing that we need to take into account is basically the change of permittivity when you go from oxide. So inside the oxide, the permittivity is what? The permittivity is epsilon ox. Here the permittivity is epsilon ox, but when you reach the semiconductor, the permittivity is going to be epsilon of silicon, and they are very different. See, for example, if I compare the relative permittivity of say the oxide, it is 3.9. I think I mentioned also in the last class, but for silicon the relative permittivity is 11.7. So if I take the ratio of oxide permittivity and silicon permittivity, so permittivity is basically product of relative permittivity and permittivity of the free space. So free space will cancel off when you take when you divide one with the other. So epsilon ox is 3.9, epsilon silicon is basically 11.7. Okay, these are material property, and if you substitute it, you will get something like, you can consider it as something like 4 by 12, so which is like approximately 1 by 3. Okay, so this is basically the ratio. Now why we need to take this ratio? Because there is a change of material, and when the electric field pass through a material 1 to material 2, then its magnitude get changed because of the difference in the permittivity. Okay, or in other words, we can say that the perpendicular component here, only perpendicular component is there with respect to the surface which we are considering vertical. The perpendicular component of the flux density, electric flux density, should be same on both the surface. That means the number of flux lines which are entering on one side should be same as the number of flux lines perpendicularly coming inside the other material. Okay, so if there is a material like this, material 1 and material 2, and the flux line is passing, so then if I count the number of flux lines entering from this side, should be same as the number of flux lines coming into the other side. So that's why we say that D, perpendicular component to the surface, should be same on both side, in oxide and silicon interface we are considering, so they should be same. If I write this in terms of electric field, then D perpendicular is basically E ox into epsilon ox, whereas D perpendicular in silicon is basically epsilon silicon E silicon. So from this we can find out E silicon, okay, electric field inside silicon, but just at the border. Okay, this is only valid just at the border. After that it will change. So just after entering into the semiconductor region, there is going to be a change by a factor of 3. So that is what I am showing here. If you look at this diagram, I am putting I am dividing this into 3. Like this is my electric field inside the oxide. So if I divide it by 3 equal portion, then only 1/3 of that is going to be inside the silicon, just at the boundary. After that it is going to change, and that we need to find out with the second Gaussian surface. Okay, so to start with, we should know what is going to be the electric field at the edge of the semiconductor, okay, near the interface. So that is obtained by using this boundary condition. And so we consider the red cuboid. Again we do the Gaussian integration, where only the left surface is going to be having non-zero electric field, and we need to use epsilon silicon here, and then every procedure is same. Only difference is that now we are considering the red cuboid, and the charge enclosed is going to be less, okay, because the enclosed region has charge only from x to xd. Okay, that is the only region which is going to have charge, right? Because we are taking this red Gaussian surface. So for example, this region from here to here, this is the region where only charge is going to be there, from here to here, because the surface is between these two edges of the depletion region, and what is on the left side is outside the Gaussian surface. So that charge we don't need to count. So only whatever is inside the Gaussian surface is going to decide the boundary electric field. Boundary means boundary of the Gaussian surface. So that's what we are finding out, which is going to be a function of x, and you will get it as QNA xd minus x. That is the region where it is enclosed charge comes. QNA is basically the again charge density, and this is the depth. Area cancels, and you will get like previously, not the full charge, but a partial charge, because the left side is like decided by x. If x is equal to 0, so right now I am taking my origin x equal to 0 point at 0.2. okay, so earlier I said I take so for a red Gaussian surface, my origin is here. Okay, so these are origins. For green okay, so this is origin 2. Okay, so this is origin 2, and this one is origin 1. Okay, so point 1 is the origin 1 and origin 2. For the second evaluation, this Gaussian integral, we are taking origin as point 2. That means at the start of the depletion region is where we take the origin, okay, which is the interface point. From there, if I reach xd, then all charge will be over. Okay, so xd minus xt is going to be 0. That means there is going to be no electric field uh, at the end of depletion region. So that's what you can see here. So if I plot this, this is a linear function starting from the boundary value that I told you earlier. It linearly decrease because it's like a straight line, the equation of the electric field, right? So this is like this is a straight line equation. Okay, so this is straight line. Okay, so it is going to reduce with respect to x, and that when x is equal to xd, it is going to become 0. So that you can see here. Now what is left to find out is what is going to be the potential drop, and why we are interested is because we want to find out what is going to be the total drop psi s in the semiconductor. Okay, so again, if you go back to the energy band diagram, we have psi aux and psi x. So psi s is basically this. Okay, so this is basically our this difference is basically q psi s. So that is a very important parameter for drawing the energy band diagram. So we need to find that out, or so you can do that just the same way we did line integral for oxide region. So now only difference is that we take the origin at a different point. So here if you look at the expression, what I am going to do is that I am going to take the starting point of the integral as xd. That is the rightmost point in the depletion region where the depletion region ends. Okay, from there if I integrate to the left side, my x is where? Starting from point 2. Okay, point 2 is my origin. So x is a point between point 1 and point 2 and xd. Okay, so so if I go back to the picture, okay, if I go back to the picture, so this is my picture. So I am starting my integration from this point, or maybe it is better to show it here. Okay, so point 1 2 3. So I am starting my integration from here. My origin is still at point 2. Okay, I am considering origin as point 2, but my integration started at point 3, that is here. I am starting my integration here and ending somewhere in between 2 and 3, so that I can get the voltage at that point with respect to point 3. And why point 3? Point 3 is basically the bulk region voltage, which is basically grounded, right? My reference is like when I apply voltage, this is my reference, this is my ground point. So from the bulk voltage, how much is my voltage at different points inside the depletion region? That's what I am calculating. So that is why when I do the line integral here, I start from xd to point x. So what does that means? So the voltage at point x with respect to point xd, that's what I am finding out. The origin is still at point 2, that is at the interface region. So I do E dot dx, so that will give you the voltage. So if I do this integration, so I just substitute E of x. Just now I found out q na xd minus x by epsilon silicon. Okay, so that dx, but this is now a function of x, not like a constant like before. So therefore we need to basically integrate out each term. There are two terms, one is a constant term and the other is basically a x term. So constant term will give you integral x, and x term will give you x square by 2 when you integrate. Okay, so q na epsilon si I am taking outside, and the remaining thing I am integrating. So xd into x minus x square by 2, and the limits are xd to x. Okay, from xd to x we are evaluating, and so that you substitute. If you substitute the limit, upper limit, if I put x is equal to x, so that will be the same thing whatever is there in the bracket, minus if I put x is equal to xd, then it will be xd square plus xd square by 2. So if I rearrange the term and taking out the 2 outside, so I took the 2 outside, so it will be x square minus 2x xd plus xd square. Okay, so this I can write it as x minus xd the whole square, right? A minus b all square is a square minus 2ab plus b square. So same identity here, you can easily get it as this. So this means it is going to be quadratically varying with respect to x. So x equal to xd, it is going to be 0. right? If x is equal to xd, the voltage is going to be 0. That is what we are expecting, right? And then when you move toward the left, as x decreases, of course the inside the bracket it is going to be more negative, but when you square it, the negative sign goes, right? So it is going to increase, and when x equal to 0, you have q na by 2 epsilon psi xd square. Okay, so that is what we will get. So that's what we are doing here. So you get, in order to get the expression for the surface potential, this is also called the surface potential. Okay, so this is called surface potential. Surface, that means the interface, what is going to be the potential. So surface potential psi s is equal to basically psi, according to this definition, if I put x equal to 0, I will get what is going to be the surface potential. So it will become xd square here, like this. Now if I invert this relationship, my xd is equal to it will be a square root of this surface potential. Okay, so I get an expression for xd. Okay, so that I can do. So now we know that the total applied voltage, partly it is dropped across the oxide, which we found out, and partly it is dropped across the semiconductor. So the sum of these two should be gate to bulk voltage. So I can just substitute here. So oxide voltage is going to be a constant q na xd by cox, and the voltage across the semiconductor region, so that which we just now found out, this one, so that also you can substitute. So one is like a, linear in xd, other is like a square in xd. Okay, so this is one way I can write the potential drop. This is like KVL. Okay, the applied voltage is dropped, a part of it is dropped across the oxide, the remaining part is dropped in the depletion region. Okay, and wherever there is lot of charges, like beyond depletion region, there is negligible drop because there is high conductivity there because of the presence of holes. So voltage is always dropped where there are no charge carriers. Okay, depletion region has no charge carriers, so there is going to be a voltage drop there. Oxide region, there are no charge carriers, therefore there is going to be voltage region. So that's why I said why this energy band diagram is flat away from the depletion region is because they have large conductivity and therefore negligible. So conductivity and voltage drop, they are related. Okay, higher the conductivity, lesser is the voltage drop. Like the connecting wires that we use from a plug to a from a power point to a, say, a bulb, they will not drop because it has very high conductivity. The entire applied voltage from the power source, it is going to be dropped across the bulb filament. Okay, that's because the wire has high conductivity. It is made of copper material because lots of free electrons are available there, but inside the bulb, the filament has higher resistivity. Okay, large resistance, so the all voltage will be dropped there. So similar thing is happening here. Inside the bulk, lots of holes are there. It's a p-type region, and therefore lots of free charge carriers are there, which are holes, and there will be no or negligible voltage drop. But in the depletion region, charges are pushed away, free charges are not there, only ions are there, and they will offer resistivity and therefore voltage drop. So that voltage drop in the semiconductor is the second term, which has xd square, and similarly the oxide region, it is insulating region, and it will also have voltage drop, just like a capacitor. Okay, so capacitor has voltage drop, and similar way we can think of this voltage drop psi ox plus psi s is VGB. Now if I substitute for xd, like from here, okay, so I am substituting for xd in this two expression. I have xd is an unknown. I don't know how much is the depth of the depletion region, but I know the relationship with psi s, the voltage drop. So if I write it in terms of psi s, then it will be like this. Okay, so if there is a square term, it will be just taking things to the other side. So it will be q epsilon silicon psi s by q Na. Okay, but if it is xd, you need to put a square root of that. Okay, so so psi s I am just taking as it is here, but in the first term I am substituting for xd. So this is another way of writing. Okay, so this is one way of writing and this is another way of writing. So this is option 1 and this is option 2, where here in option 1 xd is the unknown. The total applied voltage will be distributed depending upon xd. Here we say that it is distributed in terms of surface potential. Okay, psi s. So these are two alternate ways. Now if I simplify this first term here, I will get it like this, right? qna I can cancel, and this is square root of qna, so it will be square root in the numerator, and so I collect all the term, I will get like this. Now what is the use of writing it in the second form? Is because we are able to find out psi s. We can find out psi s with respect to the separation between the Fermi level and the psi s. If you look at here in this diagram, so I have redrawn the diagram here. So if you look at here, our original EI was here. Okay, original EI was here, and my Fermi level is here, and then the EI has bended. Okay, the amount of bend of EI is basically what we call as psi s. Okay, so that is going to be the voltage drop. Okay, so in energy band diagram it will be Q into psi s. So Q into psi s is basically what? It is going to be equal to yeah, so Q into psi s is basically the total drop, or psi s. I mean, I don't need to put Q there. If I am talking about voltage, it will be total drop of voltage in the semiconductor, okay, or the depletion region. Okay, so that will be psi s. Now I am going to define a very important parameter for a MOS capacitor, and this is what we are finally coming into, which is called threshold voltage. Okay, so in order to find what is threshold voltage, what we need to know is basically what is the voltage. The definition is like this. So the voltage the voltage VGB at which inversion layer is created. So that is the definition of threshold voltage. Okay, so the threshold voltage is that voltage at which the inversion layer is created. What do we mean by inversion layer? As I said, if I increase the gate voltage with respect to bulk, then what happened? First electrons are pushed away, holes are pushed away and depletion region is formed, and if I keep on increasing, what will happen? Then electrons will be attracted underneath the oxide interface, and that will create a channel, and that is shown here by this band bending. If you can see that at some voltage the bend is such that the EI has gone down below the EFS. Okay, from the last class, if you remember, we have related the number of electrons to the difference between EI and EFS, right? So if I rewrite that equation, the number of electrons in the in a semiconductor is given by what? It is given by Ni into, Ni is the intrinsic charge, Ni into EF minus EI by kVt, right? So this is the relationship that we talked about in the last class. Ni, so the electron concentration vary from Ni as the Fermi level goes away in the upward direction from EI. Okay, so you can see that near to the interface you can make it n-type by bending it sufficiently large. Now an inversion layer is that voltage, or inversion layer is created at a voltage where this bending is such that whatever was the location of EI above EFS earlier, okay, by the same amount if it comes below. Okay, so this we call it as phi b. So if I come phi b downward, so then I have same amount of electrons near the interface as it is holes in the bulk region. Okay, so the same relationship applies for holes also. So holes we can write like this. So the number of holes, we said it is basically Ni into e raised to EI minus EF by kVt, right? So if EI is above EFS, okay, there is going to be holes, large number of holes. Okay, how many number of is determined by this expression. Ni is like 10 raised to 10. If this is going to be 10 raised to 6, then the amount of hole concentration is going to be 10 raised to 16 per centimeter cube. Okay, so similarly the same concentration you can achieve for electron in the interface if you can bring down your EI below the EF by the same amount it is above the EF for the P region. Okay, so we apply sufficiently high voltage such that this bending will just be such that it will be such that our psi s, okay, so if we want to go from here to here, how much is the voltage we need to apply? We need to apply 2 phi b voltage. Okay, 1 phi b drop corresponds to making it intrinsic, and then one more phi b voltage if you bend it, then it will become n-type. Okay, and so if psi s, that is this psi s, if it becomes 2 phi b, and what is phi b? We can write it as phi b is equal to Vt ln Na by Ni. Okay, so this relationship also I have derived or shown it in the last class. If you are not remembering it, go back to that previous class and refresh all of this. Okay, I have in detail I have given those expressions. So it is basically an inversion of these expressions. Okay, where what I am saying is that the number of hole concentration in this region is basically the P is basically equal to Na, and so if I substitute for P Na and then invert it, I will get Ei minus Ef, which is phi b, and so that is how I will get this expression. Okay, so I can understand, or I can know what is going to be phi b. Okay, depending it only depends upon, the only unknown here is doping concentration, which is also available to me. So if I know the doping concentration, I can find out my phi b, which is basically how much is EI above EFS. I can know that, and then if I impose the condition for threshold voltage, it is the voltage VGB at which inversion layer is created. Okay, and voltage VGB I have written it into two terms. First term is basically this. Okay, this is my first term, that is the voltage drop across the oxide, plus the voltage drop across the semiconductor. Okay, the sum of these two is basically my VGB. But now I am saying if psi s is going to be 2 phi b, I get inversion. Okay, because the same concentration of holes in the bulk, I will get the same amount of concentration for electrons at the interface. Okay, so thereby I have converted a p region to an n region with the same number of concentration, and that is what I refer to as inversion, and the voltage required for that is what I refer to as threshold voltage. Okay, so threshold voltage is that voltage at which the inversion layer is created. And what is inversion layer? The layer of electrons underneath the oxide region inside the semiconductor, where the concentration of electrons per unit cube is same as the concentration of holes per unit cube in the bulk region. Okay, so that will happen when your psi s, that is this, become equal to 2 phi b, and phi b is related to this. Okay, so phi b, here phi b is this. Okay, and I have written psi ox also in terms of psi s, so I can put 2 phi b here also. So that means okay, so this is the equation. Okay, so far this is the equation that we have got. VTH is equal to psi ox plus psi s, where psi ox is this and psi s is this. Okay, now so this is the case for what? This is the case that we have considered for phi m equal to phi s. We have not considered the other case where they are different. So in order to consider the that particular case where our work functions are different, okay, so let us consider this energy band diagram, which I have earlier drawn also, where phi m is basically, here my phi m is basically less than phi s. So you see this is my phi m. Okay, you can see that this is my phi m, this much, but phi s usually see it is bigger, right? From EFS to the vacuum I have bigger, and because it is bigger and the Fermi level has to be at the same level, the only way in which it can be satisfied is all other band has to bend. Okay, so there is going to be a band bending and there is going to be voltage drop. Okay, this is exactly the same concept by which we get PN junction. Okay, you know that PN junction has a built-in voltage. For silicon diode it is 0.7. How do we get that? It is the same idea here. Okay, same idea. If you apply, you can by now you can draw the energy band diagram for a PN junction by following the same procedure. Okay, the Fermi level has to be continuous. Okay, and the work function for P region and N region are going to be different. Okay, how much they are going to be different? They are going to be different by the location of EFS is going to be different, right? I have drawn separately P and N in the last class, so if you can do it as an exercise, when you put them together, what is going to be the energy band diagram, that will be great. Okay, so let's limit our discussion with MOS structure. Phi m is less than phi s, so I have this. Okay, I have not applied any non-zero voltage. VGB is 0 here. Now I need to make it into this, the right side band diagram. It is also for the same MOS structure, but here I am going to apply a voltage which is equal to phi m minus phi s. Whatever is the difference in the work function, okay, so that difference voltage, if I apply, what is going to happen is that in this case it is going to be negative voltage, right? It is going to be a negative voltage. So if I apply a negative voltage whose magnitude is same as phi m minus phi s, because phi s is larger than phi m, it is going to be negative. So then what happens? My Fermi level on the metal side is going to shift upward. Okay, whenever we apply negative voltage, it will shift upward. Whenever we apply positive voltage, it will shift downward. Earlier I have discussed when both phi m and phi s are equal, I applied a positive voltage, and you see that metal side Fermi function shifted downward. Okay, so that is why I have shown here this. Okay, so this is the shifting downward. Okay, it is shifting like this. Earlier it was aligning, but now it has got shifted downward. Okay, so similarly, if I apply a negative voltage, the Fermi the metal side is going to shift upward. Okay, so it is going to go upward like this. It has gone. Okay, this was our original, and it has gone upward by an amount, whatever is the voltage, and that voltage in this case it is negative, but if phi m is larger than phi s, it is going to be positive. So it all depend upon what material that we choose, okay, whether it is negative or positive, but we will call that voltage as the flat band voltage. Okay, so this is called the flat band voltage. Why it is called for flat band voltage? Because if I apply this voltage, I will get rid of all the bending. Okay, because it will shift the Fermi level, and therefore, and by the exact amount that we require, so that the vacuum level will be continuous and with the same value, same level. Okay, so earlier this was down. Now we applied a voltage which is sufficiently large or just needed in order to make it aligned with the right side. So therefore, by applying external voltage with sufficient magnitude, I can straighten out my situation, or straighten out my energy bands. Okay, and now if we consider the earlier discussion, we can now talk about the threshold voltage, how much we need to bend in order to convert the p-type material to n-type. Okay, so all that we have found out earlier. Okay, this one. So this is basically our earlier expression. Okay, we need to apply some voltage such that which is called threshold voltage, that will create an inversion where my psi s become 2 phi b, and I have written both psi ox and psi x in terms of phi b. Okay, I have substituted it as 2 phi b, and I got this threshold voltage. That was only applicable for flat band case, but if I have a different situation where I have phi m and phi s different, then only thing I need to do is I need to add to the earlier voltage the flat band voltage. So this is like the new term that I have introduced. So earlier voltage plus phi, it may be negative voltage. Okay, so in other way we can think is, you first you apply V F B and make all the bands flat, and then on the top of that you apply additional voltage to bend the band and to create the inversion layer. Okay, so depending upon the material, these magnitudes are going to differ. Okay, so I have here shown this is the threshold voltage, okay, for the case where phi m is less than phi s. So that's what we set out finally to derive. So what I have presented to you is the derivation of the threshold voltage, both the case of phi m equal to phi s and phi m less than phi s. Okay, now you can do it as an exercise, what is going to be the way in which bands will change or if phi m is greater than phi s. Okay, so that is something that you can do it yourself, and you will see that the flat band voltage is going to become positive. So here it is negative, it is going to become positive. So we will stop here, and this derivation is going to be very important. So definitely understand and learn it, energy band diagram and the derivation of the threshold voltage. That is going to be very, very important, because threshold voltage determines everything that is going to happen with respect to a MOSFET. Okay, MOSFET is metal oxide semiconductor field effect transistor. So the threshold voltage is one most important parameter which is going to determine how the MOSFET is going to work as a switch. Okay, so if it is if the applied voltage at the gate is greater than threshold voltage, it will be acting as a closed switch. We will see that in the next class, and if it is lesser than the threshold voltage, it will act as an open switch. Okay, so therefore you need to know threshold voltage very well, and I have given you the complete derivation using the support of energy band diagram. So learn that very well.